Hi and welcome back to Three Skulls Tavern. I'm back with another Q&A session. As I said in the last video, I am tackling a backlog of Q&A questions going back over a year ago, so I'm doing shorter videos to address these questions one by one, rather than doing one epic long video where I'm tackling them all together. So this second Q&A session is tackling another question from Lekis over in my Discord, and he asks this question up here. One question from my side. I watched a video, I don't remember the channel or the video's title, where a guy was reviewing a game. He was pissed about the lazy art, his words, and lack of rules. He stated that nowadays we have been flooded with so-called minimalist or simple rule systems that cost too much for what they deliver. If I'm not mistaken, he mentioned Troika as another example, which costs about 20 euros and is a simplified copy of Advanced Fighting Fantasy. As a game designer, what do you think about his opinion? Do you think that part of it is true? um, this is kind of a hard one to answer. It's a good question. And I think that it's very difficult to come up with a golden bullet for what role-playing games should cost. Everyone has a different idea of it. Some people are a little bit more capitalist about it. Some people want to be reimbursed for the time it took them for designing the game, playtesting the game, updating the game constantly, like Troika. And I think that's fair. And we live in a free market society, more or less. At least where I live and where a lot of game designers live, which is sort of in North America and Europe for the vast majority of us, and the UK, I guess, where we have to include the UK no longer. We can't no longer include the UK in Europe, unfortunately, being a British person myself. And I think some people like me take a little bit more of a socialist approach to things, and one of the things I like to do with my content is especially if it's a shorter piece that I'm releasing on drive-through. What I do, for example, my workshop content, there is a small price attached, usually not more than like €2, I don't think. I think €5 maybe for my solo expansion rule set for Forbidden Lands. I think it's up to €5 now, or $5. That's the most meaty of the things that I've released and has gone through a lot of playtesting. But otherwise, what I tend to do for the very small ones is I'll release as a preview on DriveThruRPG the entire contents of the PDF. You can click on it as a preview. It'll have like a red watermarked sample, I think, across the center of every page, but you can still read everything. And that means if you want to preview it and you want to use it, you absolutely can. It's just going to be watermarked. And then if you want to actually pay me for it because you find it useful, then you can come back and purchase it. So that, for me, I feel like is a really good approach to let people play it with a watermark. I know the watermarks can be a bit annoying, but it's still perfectly usable. And that's just my opinion on how things could be released. I think I might do that I'm not sure off the top of my head if I do that with Year Zero Mini. I think with Year Zero Mini, I do that for one of the editions, but when you pay for it, you also get a phone PDF version, which is not included in the preview. So there's this kind of like slightly more convenient version of the game. It's still the same text, which you can get fully in the preview, but it's just, easier to read on a phone or whatever. So I kind of like that as a way to approach this. People that can stick whatever price they want on it, but having a preview of the entire thing, or at least a playable version of the entire thing, think of it like a quick start maybe, is a fair way of handling these things. In terms of price, it's whatever people want to charge for their time, to be honest. I mean, I don't work full time. I have a part-time job because I have two kids, and my wife actually works more than me. For our first kid, it was swapped around. I was working full time and she wasn't. And now we've had our second kid, we swapped it around. Now that my second son doesn't need as much looking after because he's getting a bit older, we've agreed that for the past few years, I was not going to return to full-time work. So because we're in a financial place where we're lucky enough that I can stay part-time, and use those extra hours in the week to devote to role-playing stuff. And that's how I've been able to do things like be commissioned for solo rules for Free League and Two Little Mice, etc. And as a result of that, like, I'm taking time off of getting paid a full-time job so that I can create content. And as a result of that, I do need to charge for this. That's why I have a Patreon as well coming up, where I'm going to be charging people, because this stuff takes time to create content, whether that's YouTube videos or it's PDFs and stuff. And sure, people do this for free alongside. People do this alongside a full-time job, and people are able to release stuff for free. Look at like Ironsworn, for example, from Sean Tompkin. The difference there is that maybe his home situation is a little bit different, where he's got more free time. I know he doesn't have any young kids at home, for example. And that's cool. Like, that's how he wants to do things. That more power to him. And other people that want to charge for their work, again, I can't say anything about, I can't really throw stones at anyone or say what I think is too expensive or not. It's whatever somebody thinks they feel is a fair price for their work. And we're in a free market. People can charge whatever they want. And you, as a consumer, you can basically decide whether you want to pay for that or not. So that's one question around the price. I think that's a really hard thing to really talk about. And then going back into that a little bit and talking about lazy art and lack of rules and minimalist stuff, charging sort of like full price for them. I think that's just a bullshit hot take. I don't agree with that at all. Sometimes it's actually harder to design stuff with elegant minimized rules than it is to create something that's a little bit more, you're coming up with rules for everything. Because to hit that sort of elegance, you really have to, there's this fine line between including the right number of rules and deciding on what is best left up to the GM to make a ruling on, without kind of, I don't know, there's this really hard balance to get, I think. And I've never played Troika. I have Troika. I mean, I have thousands of role-playing games I've never looked at, and that's one of them. One of the ones that I've always kind of wanted to look at but never have. I have read fighting fantasy game books, but I've never played advanced fighting fantasy. I mean, let's not talk about Troika as a specific example. It also has artwork in it, which I believe is not by the author, so he's commissioned art for it. So by all means, he should be paying, he should be charging a little bit more than standard for people who are releasing stuff with no art in it, or God forbid, AI generated art, which I'm not at all a supporter of. So yeah, lazy art, that's like down to opinion. That's like your opinion, man, to quote the great Jeff Lebowski. I was going to say a different surname there for somebody I know. But to quote the dude, that's his opinion. And yeah, lack of rules. I'm not trying to say here that every minimalist game released or short game is designed elegantly. There are for sure going to be people doing cash grab stuff. There are going to be people who are going to be releasing perhaps stuff where they could have put more work into it and where their stuff is inelegant. But again, like, whatever, if they don't have a preview, don't buy it. Like, ask for a preview if they haven't got one. And if it only has the table of contents, ask for a bit more in their comments. And, if you leave a comment on DriveThruRPG, for example, and the author doesn't respond, and they're constantly saying like, look, man, you're asking $10 for this game. It's 6 pages long. You're not showing us any of the content. We really need to see a little bit of what you're producing here before we give you that money. I think that's fair comment. I don't think it's maybe fair to say, I feel like $10 for this is, well, I mean, fair. Okay. You can give your opinion in a review. That's absolutely something you're able to do. I just think, as somebody who creates content myself, I have had some reviews where I felt like people were being unfair, where they bounced off of stuff that I created out of really, really weird personal opinions, rather than any what I consider like valid criticisms that I could address in my design. But again, that's fair. I'm not seeking to like remove their reviews or anything like that, or like report their reviews or anything like that. It's their opinion. That's fine. It does kind of annoy me as a designer that I feel like I'm getting some unfair reviews. It's really on one product I've created, which is the Forbidden Lands solo rule set. Where yeah, anyway, I'm not sour about it. I'm not gonna harp on about it. But it's your right as a consumer to leave a review for something that you've purchased. And if you're not happy with it, if you feel like it's got, if it's been written lazily or it's too much money for what it is, then like that's something fair to leave in a review for it. Maybe the author will respond to it, hopefully in a civilized way. Maybe they'll drop the price, and that'll help other people. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a hard question to really go into too much detail, and I don't have a hot take on it. I think this is capitalism, man. Like we've got the ability to spend our money on things that we want to spend it on, and if you don't want to spend it on it, don't. And in my opinion, I think previews are by far and large the best way for both the designer and the consumer to showcase their work and to get people to purchase their work, because you're basically it's like if you go to a convention and you want to buy a book. This is the best way to buy a role-playing book, by the way. Go to a convention. Obviously, it's not possible for everybody, unfortunately. But at a convention, like you go up to a booth and there's a role-playing game on the table. You can pick that game up. You can flick through it. You can stand there for an hour if you want and read it. You might annoy the people at the booth, but you're perfectly welcome to just flick through that book and look at that book in whatever detail you want to decide, is this something I want to spend my money on? And I think for me, that's why I do these previews in a similar way with DriveThruRPG. I think that's the best way to address this issue. And honestly, if people get annoyed about a dearth of good games with good art or whatever, and this the market being flooded with lazy games and lazy art, that's strong words to use, but that's you don't have to spend your money on it. So yeah, that's all I've got to say on the topic. I will say my favorite games are, generally speaking, bigger games that cost a bit more money, mainly because I really like good art. I like good layout. I like being able to skim through a book quite easily, which is why Free League's books, especially their more recent books, really resonate well with me. They have really great graphic design. They have really great art, and you get sucked into the game. The vibes are amazing. And for me, like more than half of wanting to run a game is about vibes and about getting excited about a game. And I don't really get excited by mechanics. I might get excited by mechanics if it's in like a really lightweight game that doesn't cost a lot necessarily, or it's been designed really elegantly, and I might want to play that game. But really the games that really want me to get them to the table are the ones that are really vibrant and have great vibes. So yeah, that's my preference. I do like, I'm a game designer myself. I've created my own lightweight framework, Year Zero Mini, and I've used that to play quite a few games. And I know I have another online friend, Zach Aber, who's created a game called Journeyman, and he kind of famously on one of our Discord servers that we have in common, always says like, "Oh, why don't you just run that with Journeyman?" Kind of as a joke, but it's a good point he makes, which is like, if you've created this lightweight system that can kind of run anything, and it then basically opens it up that every other role-playing game out there becomes a source book, becomes like you can basically just take any book off of your shelf, ignore all the mechanical aspects to it, or maybe even pull one or two of those mechanics into your own game if it's lightweight enough and modular enough that you can do it, and then you can just basically run any game with your kind of system of choice. That's what I've certainly done with Year Zero Mini, and it's easy enough that I can kind of run almost any game with it. It suits gritty games better than like superhero or heroic level games, but I can create very easily NPCs on the fly. The mechanics are super easy to figure out, and very quick and easy to adapt to kind of any setting. That it just works really well for that. So yeah, I'm kind of gone away from the main question, but yeah. In fact, I'm trying to find the question. What do I think about his opinion? Okay, right. Yeah. Games that cost too much for what they deliver. Try and get a preview before you buy it, and it's up to you. Everyone earns different amounts of money, and everyone has a different level of disposable income. my friend Liam, has often said that role playing games is a hobby of the privileged, and it's true. Like if you have enough disposable money that you can spend money on a digital role playing game, then you aren't worried about living paycheck to paycheck and putting food on the table. So yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. I guess like if most of the people in our hobby can afford to buy these games. If you want to can you buy every game that comes out? Probably most of us can't. We'd be broke very quickly because there's just so many games. But it's up to you to decide whether you can afford a game that kind of crops up on DriveThruRPG that people are talking about. And the best way to figure out whether it's something you want to spend money on is to try and find a preview. And otherwise, it's kind of down to your own opinions on what you think is good value for money. So that's me. Thanks very much. Sorry I don't have a really hot take in there to counter, but that's just my views there. So thanks very much, and I'll catch you in the next Q&A session. Bye.